everyone. Hopefully it's still sharing the right screen here. Let me know if I'm on the double screen.
Yep, you're good.
But is Dan with us, or he had to jump? I know he had a busy day, so I may be filling in for Dan. And Bianca may have had internet issues also. But
I am here. I've
awesome.
been able to
Okay.
grace everyone with my presence.
Great. So we'll be able to pass things off then. And Bianca, are you here as well?
I'm here. Yeah.
Awesome. All right. You want to take her away, and I'll just click through them for you.
Sure. Sounds good. All right. So again, a big thank you to all our CPC delegates and our guests that are joining us. So you all make this possible. Any guests that you want to get a little bit more involved with the CPC, definitely check out our membership page by visiting congressprogress.org. You could also just send me an email direct at bianca@constructionprogress.org as well. And we have our new delegates that I'd like to spotlight. Joining us today, we have Jeffrey Owett, who's the Chief Progress Advocate for JC Consulting and Build Smart International. And we also have a new technology solution provider, Trent Miskelly, repping Inertia Systems. So welcome to CPC. We're really happy to have you on board.
Jeffrey, I can only imagine what our next topic is going to be in digital twin, but I'm going to listen to the recording, so I'll find out more.
Oh, Jesus. Well, you know me. I am becoming more and more jaded about technology and more interested in the culture and business and those larger aspects that frame all of it.
See, and that's why Sasha's brought us together. But again, that's another story. Okay, so moving on to roundtable engagement. Lil, are you with us? Maybe.
No.
Muted or not. Okay, I'll cover for Lil.
Oh, I didn't unmute myself.
There you are.
Sorry, I was trying to type in my notes on the slides and also being here. So engagement.
That's my fault. I'm making you do way too much. Sorry.
So we have an average of 74 attendees attend these CPC virtual roundtables. So that's really good numbers. We have in this, for the month of August, we have 18 new attendees. And then you can see sort of the breakdown of who's joining us. So it looks like the dominant here is we have a lot of technology vendors here with us. Second to a lot of, remind me what VC is for, Nathan?
Venture capital. Hopefully Alice Leung joined us from
brick and mortar.
Sorry, brick and mortar, yeah, and getting the investment perspective as well, because again, so much of this comes down to business models and how we solve that side of things. So yeah, including them as a category as well.
And then we're also still trying to find, we're still, part of doing the CPC engagements every month is, and why it's so important for you to fill in your plus and delta is we're still trying to pivot every month to making sure we have the right amount of sessions provided. So it looks like we had 7 for the month of August. So it looks like 6 and 7 seem to be a very comfortable spot to really kind of address some of the topics that we want to share in Champagne. So that's all I have for the breakout.
Thank you, Lil. And yeah, speaking of the plus delta, so I am putting the link to this month's plus delta in the chat box right now. So if you can go in there and add the aspects of this that you enjoy, the things that you'd like to see different, or new ideas, or ways that we can enhance the engagement and really bring different folks together to try and move these topics together and gain a larger shared understanding of how these tend to come together, and really hopefully I think come up with something that can start to move the industry forward. So I think one thing I may incorporate for next time, if there is interest from folks, is having separate rooms if you want to kind of propose your own topic and you've got folks that you want to invite and provide that as a platform for folks. Because again, we can hold a lot more different breakout groups. It's just really hard for me to manage all the topics and all the backend and sort of create the experiences. So if there's other folks that just want to use these rooms during this time for your own topics, I think we'll include that as a submission, and you'll see some other tweaks in the registration process and application for next time. So let us know what you thought of the sizes or how this whole application process worked. We're always trying to tweak and see what's working, what's not. So that feedback is much appreciated. With that, So real quick, just again, always trying to look at engagement and measuring ourselves and looking at our own key performance indicators. So was just looking back at some of the social media numbers. It was interesting to see a lot of the increase, especially in LinkedIn activity and followers. You can see here, so trying to keep ourselves measuring ourselves and measuring that growth of the awareness and the exposure that we want to create for the industry, of really the conversations that we should be having, and really how to start having those conversations. So hopefully this is a value to folks, and you want to share it with your networks, and that is much appreciated as well. Dan, are you with us? You want to tell everyone why we're not going to have this done, our podcast done by our promised end of month, but it'll be very soon, correct?
Correct. Ideally next week we will have it released. I screwed up, so that's for me to blame. Forgot to upload our template this month, but we will have that most likely uploaded and out next week. Apologies for that. So we'll have 2 in the month of September.
But and if you didn't see the note, so we will be recording and sharing all of these conversations now, again, especially with our more select group of participants, to make sure that we're keeping these conversations as open and sharing with the industry as possible. So check out the YouTube channel for all these recordings, and we'll send out an email once those are all posted next week as well. Coming up, so if you are still able to stay with us, well, not with us, but head over to the Construction Doorcast, and I actually have the link that I'm going to put in the chat box. But Travis, do you want to talk a little bit about what you guys are going to be talking about here in what, about 15 minutes here?
Yeah, well, it's closer to 5 or 5 Central Time, but
Okay.
this one, the idea here is we're going to have Lauren and Terry on, and we're going to kind of talk about how coordination from an MEP has been going on for a while, coordination in fabrication, and now we have the concrete prefabricators and how that all is going to start to get involved and have a discussion around that.
Awesome. So yeah, I was totally looking at the wrong clock thing. Of course, yeah, it's in 45 minutes.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just put that Zoom registration in there. So if you do want to participate in that, that's always fun. And I will definitely be on to respond to all of my call outs. Thank you, Travis.
Yeah, we got to do it.
I will never not be live on one again to not be able to respond. But Jonathan, love what you guys are doing. I'm very jealous of the sketch artist and all the work. That's very cool stuff.
Well, we did bring up, if you have a topic you'd like to cover on the podcast, you can come back, and I'm pretty sure we can get you a caricature.
Oh man, Paul, I think he's talking to you. Awesome. And then just a reminder, we talked about this last month, but MEP Force is next week. If you didn't see on LinkedIn, there are these awesome swag boxes that everyone's getting. I'm very much anticipating that hopefully mine shows up and I put the address in correctly. We'll see. But we do have that CPC 99 code to save $50 on registration. It feels like, I've heard numbers that are quite high on the registration list. So Todd, I hope you're ready for this. It should be a lot of fun. But
you get a lot for that $99. Sweatpants, snacks, that's pretty good. So you don't get that at AU.
It's a steal.
Right. So I love that. I love all that. Very excited to see how that unfolds. These virtual events have been a lot of fun, but I think this will be obviously a lot of friendly faces. You see all the names there: Walker Locker, Jeff Sample, Travis, Amy Marks. A lot of familiar faces that will be speaking. So looking forward to that next week. All right. I did see that there's an announcement. On AEC Hackathon. So that will be October 5th through 25th is the second one. If you didn't participate in July, lots of great just webinar events that are going back and forth that are free to register for. And they're always looking for industry advisors and mentors to participate in this. Jeffrey and myself helped mentor and guide some of the groups. And actually Daniel was with Build For as one of the winners with a really cool kind of scheduling and Alexa type integration. So really cool stuff to see, like what is possible in these laboratory environments with the technology. And then it's kind of up to us to figure out the business mechanics and all the other aspects to actually make it work. So looking forward to that in October. Paul, anything you want to add to that? I know
No,
that's your baby too.
no. And Steve's, but no, just come on and come all. It's a fun event, and just thanks for the shout out, Nathan. We appreciate it.
Yeah, and definitely Steve running the helm with the Zoom background. It's or Zoom admin stuff. It's not an easy job. So we both have faced those shared pains together. So I did want to update everyone. If you didn't hear previously, or see the emails, we had 4 awesome interns, or 3 Walsh interns, and a graduate student from University of Texas, and did an amazing job learning and digesting their 4 different workflows of quality inspections, RFI, production tracking, and document control. We awarded the overall innovation award to Abdullah's research around Department of Transportation, TxDOT, and Zachary and the third-party inspector quality management system. Really uncovered some very practical, kind of pragmatic opportunities that I think will really lead to some conversations and hopefully some policy changes and improvements in quality interoperability, especially on design build highway projects in Texas. And then Trina won the Intern Excellence Award. And Dan, I mean, I know you worked on this as well. Do you want to say a little bit about the work that the interns did, and Trina?
Yeah, I mean, it was just a great opportunity, thanks to Bluebeam and Nathan through the CPC of hosting this and putting this on. It really kind of showcased a broad spectrum of different findings that were fairly interesting to learn about. A lot of them were now interviewed, not only individuals from the Walsh team, the owner side, vendor side, and subcontractor side, and showing that interrelationship between the twos and the interoperabilities that they all face. So it was definitely a great exercise, and we have some great resources and great education that the entire research project brought about.
Absolutely. So yeah, really looking forward to doing this again next year, and kind of widening the pool of applicants and seeing how we can scale the use of the CDX framework for communicating these interoperability pain points and opportunities, whether you're a new intern out of school or someone that's been in the industry for 20 years. So it was very, very cool experience this summer. So look for those YouTubes to come out next week as well, with those recordings to watch those presentations. But without further ado, Dan, let's you want to start running through our summary breakouts? Go ahead.
So if you've been on the calls before, welcome back. If you've not, this last session are 5-minute rapid fire summaries of different breakouts. So it's tough to get these all into 5 minutes. So keep it concise. We'll kick you out just as fast as we kick you out of those other sessions. So without further ado, Sasha is going to discuss about inclusion and diversity. And actually, we gave them homework this month. So excited to see what we can discuss next month.
Thank you, Dan. Yeah, this was not enough time to discuss this topic, but it was nonetheless a great conversation. We did a little bit of a different approach this time, and we actually chose to do a fireside chat. Ezra Teshome was our guest, who was kind enough to share his experience from going into college to getting internships to starting out in the construction industry, experiencing very clear examples of inequality and lack of access to promotion and career development based on the fact of the color of his skin and some of the biases that he came up against. And also looking at what led him then to technology and how his experience has been different now with a technology company. But the conversation was great because we were talking about intersectionality and how that's different from inclusion. And so if you're not familiar, intersectionality is the definition, the formal definition is the interconnected nature of social categorizations such as race, class, and gender as they apply to a given individual or group, regarded as creating overlapping and interdependent systems of discrimination or disadvantage. So Ezra was saying, being a little bit more of a skeptic based on some of his experience, he views inclusion and diversity as more of a corporate concept because his reality experience was showing that there's still a lot lacking, and assimilation is kind of this norm we're trying to get to, but the beauty really comes in our differences, how we look differently at a problem or at a challenge, how we see a path forward differently. So he was speaking to some of his experience there, as well as talking to, when we talk about inclusion, who's including who? So if we have a predominantly group of white individuals who are including Black, Latinx, women, LGBTQ, when there's a dominant group that's in leadership, those who are from the minority groups experience a very different reality, interactions, access to mentorship, navigating advancement. It's a different experience. Dan brought up a really good comment around being self-motivated, having the ability to be self-motivated to kind of self-advance, to advocate on behalf of yourself. And we talked about some of Ezra's experience with pay inequality. With things like Glassdoor, you can now look up and see what some of the benchmarks are around pay. And so whereas in past you may not have been able to advocate for yourself outside of saying, based on my performance, I deserve X, you actually can now say, based on benchmarking and my performance, I deserve X. And if you're not being paid around that area, the same area, you're seeing that there's inequality, and it's not just performance-based. And so we then kind of talked about how technology, as it's disrupting construction, is also disrupting a lot of these opaque parts of business where we've never had clarity, like around equal pay for people of color and for women. We talked about how the flip side of that is, based on his ability to dive in and learn PlanGrid and learn different technology systems, he was then, through that technology, able to get advancement through becoming kind of an expert in the tech. And so it was a really great conversation around this idea of what is intersectionality, and looking at, it's not just about creating a utopic inclusive environment, it's about having a place where there's psychological safety so people can show up as who they truly are, with different perspectives, different points of view, so that we can approach the problems that we're trying to solve in construction differently.
Thanks, Sasha.
Perfect timing. That was amazing. Not that I would ever cut you off, but that was perfect.
So moving on, mental health, neurodiversity, and mindfulness. Chad, excited to hear what you guys discuss, especially with the future of workspace design, because I constantly see myself trying to gain mindfulness by staring at white walls, but hopefully we have better opportunities.
Awesome. Yeah, this was a great conversation, entertaining. Except that Travis Voss guy just kept on interrupting and just hijacked the whole thing, man. Who brings that guy? Just kidding you. Yeah, it was excellent. Thank you to the experts. You guys are great. Neurodiversity. So it is becoming a hotbed for conversation. One of the things that came up that was really compelling was the fact that about 1 in 8 people are neurodiverse, and about 50% of them don't even know. Now, what is it? Basically, any type of cognitive atypical condition like ADHD, which probably everyone in this group has to some extent. Yeah, Nathan's putting up his hand. The autism spectrum disorder, dyslexia, Tourette's. Basically anything that contributes to a sense of hyper or hyposensitivity to your environment. So technically, almost all of us could be on it from some extent. And the fact that 50% of people are undiagnosed and don't even know that they have it is a concern, especially when you consider that we're in a labor shortage and people are the biggest asset in an organization. So making sure that people have the environment that they can perform in should and ought to be a top concern of any organization, not just for productivity reasons and ROI reasons, but it's the right thing to do. So that became front and center of our conversation. Now, making the case for that financially was very simple, because Mary Kate and Kamal brought up the fact that it isn't really that much more expensive, if at all, than designing the regular space. So designing around human behavior and accommodating human behaviors is something that we should do. And it's not even going to cost us that much more money, if any at all. So now that led into a discussion around mindfulness and how it's often misunderstood. Now, mindfulness, people tend to look inward and think about it as meditation and peace of mind. But there's a major element that is not captured in most people's understanding of mindfulness, which is outward or group mindfulness. And a good design or designing around neurodiversity is going to take into account both the person's personal mindfulness as well as the group's mindfulness. We had a great conversation around barriers. And what was the one comment here? It was really smart. Give me 1 second. Brett brought up the fact that no matter how much you build space to accommodate certain conditions and tasks, there will always be a scenario, especially in construction, where a time-sensitive task is in play, and no matter what you do with design, you just can't escape the stress of time-sensitive tasks. At which time, Mary Kate had a brilliant response with, yes, there may not be a solution around it, but there's recovery. So you can always build recovery into design. And it made total sense because intermittent stress has grave impacts on our health and our performance. And one of the most important things about intermittent stress, which you can't avoid, is the recovery. So in theory, in discussion, there really is no barriers to do this. And it's something that all of us should be thinking about. A final thought, compliments of Mr. Paul Doherty, is that when you're looking at the future of design, the real professionals recognize that the differences are not intended to divide us, they're intended to unite us. That's it.
Shed. So moving on next, remote work and team engagement. As some of us are transitioning back into the offices, it's always interesting to see how these new kind of way of working are going to be evolved. And I miss my puppy because he's no longer next to me at the office. So if you guys have any tips on how to sneak your dogs into work, that'd be greatly appreciated.
Thanks, Dan. And we actually didn't cover that part, but it's actually a really good question. I think I would miss my dog if I went back into the office. But so we had a really great engaging roundtable. We had Danielle and Caitlin with us today. And one of the things that we sort of started to talk about first is Agile and Scrum. So Caitlin did a really great quick overview of what is it. And I'm going to take my try to attempt to be able to simplify that more, but it's really, a practice, as a lot of you guys know, that is adopted in the software industry. And it's based on 3 pillars: transparency, inspection, and adoption. So what we wanted to learn together is, can some of these Agile and Scrum practices be something that we can sort of directly correlate with working remote? And really the short answer is absolutely yes. And I think this is where the fun part of our conversation really started to get exciting for a lot of us. We know that Agile and Scrum, there are practices in, helping us to get away from just thinking big ideas to actually just making them happen. And then also just breaking down those tasks to work towards finishing our project. We have when it comes to working remote, there's been sort of, especially now in when we came into the COVID months, there's sort of this indirect understanding, like, we're just going to go ahead and take everything we do in person and just move that into Zoom or Zoom meeting, or just do a sprint via Zoom video. But we do lose a lot of that sort of, person-to-person collaboration. Danielle brought up something at this point where, when you have an idea, you can, talk to someone directly and kind of go into a whiteboard and then really start to have a deep conversation, and someone else jumps in the conversation. And we all been there where, some of our best ideas come from just someone walking by or just walking to someone's desk. So, and they've been able to virtually, somewhat mimic this practice using Office 365, but there is a little bit of a loss. So we talked about, what are some of, what's out there that we can kind of, help, collaborate together as a team. And Todd and Brock both mentioned Vima, which I'm probably sure Todd will go ahead and put that link for all of us if you want to check it out. But it's basically something that they've applied over at Applied Software, no pun intended there, for everyone to access and enter some of the random ideas. And then and Brock mentioned Spigot, which is another great resource. And I like how Adrian brought up was able to correlate how both of these applications, really it's sort of somewhat the agile backlog. So where we can have ideas that start to build them up and then, put them into action. Another thing that we talked about is culture. When it comes to, oh, I see that my notes didn't make it to PowerPoint, but Nathan, I swear that I put him in there.
Sorry.
But the other thing we talked about is, the importance of engagement when it comes to culture. And Danielle shared, some of the 3 core, functions here is, having a strong culture that's going to help drive that engagement. What I like what she said here is being honest, being honest with yourself, being honest with your team. I think oftentimes when it comes to having a meeting, right now all of us are showing our videos, but how many of us have been in a meeting with maybe half the folks in the room are not showing the video and the other folks are not? So, when you make it part of your culture, your company culture to show your video, I like how Danielle best said it is, we want to see your smile. I know one of the other phrases I hear on myself is, oh, I can't see you. So now so that kind of tends to build a culture. Also making it a policy, that's, something that goes with that 3-pronged approach. And then finding the right technology being that core function. Sometimes, as I mentioned earlier, Zoom is not always the right solution. But we're definitely in the decade where there is so much technology at our hand or in our disposal that we can certainly try and test out to create that engagement. One thing that, we also shared as a team is having a purpose and intent for a meeting, having an agenda. A couple of months ago, Miles Anderson shared this tip from Procore is no agenda, no attenda. So when you start to kind of, set the standard of what's this meeting about, I really like a lot of the things that Brock had shared is, one of the things he shared with the group is, hey, I didn't see an agenda attached. You must have not sent that to me. And that kind of gives the other individual that expectation of, oh, I should, definitely need to step up my game and have an agenda. But it also, we become into a culture of just meeting because we're meeting. And that also increases the chances from someone not engaging in a meeting, and they tend to kind of just slip on their chair or maybe take a look at their phone, and then, we lost that engagement. Another thing that Brock had mentioned in that meeting was, folks don't go to school or to learn how to run a meeting. So that's something where we need to help, the industry and, especially now since we have sort of this, historically we have like 5 generations in the workforce today. So, we have the younger professionals who are coming in who are not, being, held accountable. So, we also want to become a culture where we're teaching these core fundamentals of how to even hold a meeting and not just sort of set it as an expectation from everyone and kind of set that bar. So, and then the closing things is, we didn't have a chance to finish. We were still talking, but how do we measure? And, we want to give ourselves retrospective, track your time, take some time to reflect on your week and on your week or daily. I mentioned this before, there's the productivity journal, which is a really great tool to use that you can, it has a section in there where you can reflect on your week. What was some great wins? How can you do better and kind of greater productivity? So finding the right tool that's going to help you measure that success of engagement, not just for yourself internally, but also as a team as a whole. Caitlin, Danielle, I hope I did it justice, but I It was great. It was probably one of the best sessions I've been so far. So thank you.
All right, thanks, Lillian. Appreciate that. Moving on next is digital twin, the as-built dumpster dive. Probably my favorite part of a project, because as long as you're transitioned before as-built are due, you don't have to worry about it.
It's a very selfish view of it, Dan.
That is a great way to put it. So, you know, we've had a series of conversations around digital twin, and they've bounced back and forth between the early stages and the later stages, and we keep jumping over this chasm, this divide around what goes on at the end of the process for a GC and how that drives to the handover to the owner. So Danielle, one of our subject matter experts, had this great saying she called as-built dumpster diving. So what is it? Well, you get to about 6 weeks out from the end of the project, and all of a sudden you start scrambling to try to put stuff together, only to find that the subject matter experts that were on the project are now already on billable resources on other projects and have no incentive to help in the process. So they cobble together what they can and they send it off to the owner and hope that it's going to be enough. And now what ends up happening from the owner's perspective, Dennis gave us some perspective there from his role in facilities maintenance for Atrium Health, is they end up looking for a needle in the haystack. And he relayed a story back to one of his previous positions with USAA where they were looking for an operations manual for Chiller 4. Right, so he asked one guy and said, can you search this? And they search for Chiller 4 and they can't find anything. So he grabs some other guy on the team who then says, oh yeah, I know where to look for that. And he looks up this information using the project manager's name and some sublocation of where it was in the building to finally figure out where to find that particular document, only to find out that it was 1,200 pages long and it was non-indexed, non-searchable. So now you have to dumpster dive within the dumpster to find the information that you need. So this ends up having an impact on basically the longest part of the building's life cycle, right? How do they get to this information? So there's an incentive to try to build this into that digital twin where there's a relationship between the data that you need, the content that you need, and physical assets and locations in the building. So how and when do we address this? How do we make this better? Well, there is a general consensus from multiple folks that we need to get folks to the table earlier, really define those actual requirements with facilities maintenance involved in the conversation, not just some people, right? The other important thing is to understand the systems that they're trying to tie together. Right? And what do we have the ability to bring together in data, and where do we have content? And the folks that are advising the teams on how to do this, you have consultants telling folks, get everything you can, you're creating a bigger dumpster. So let's define and more tailor those requirements, because there was a story that Dennis told about within healthcare. You need to be ready for survey. So you need to be survey ready on day one. In order for them to bill insurance companies for health-related things that happen inside of medical facilities, that facility needs to be accredited. So you need to have everything together, everything about your building, everything you need to pass that survey ready for day one. It's not 6 months after the project is over when you finally get around to sending some stuff. What we think can help that is that owners want more data. They want the data more than the model, because the data is what helps them populate the facility maintenance solutions, their software, and also this digital twin concept. The models are good, but they really need the data. So there's some two things we focused on after that. One is process change and the other is incentive change. What can we do to make it work better? I think a few people if they couldn't have shook their heads up and down any harder without getting a headache, to say that we need to stop making 1,000+ page PDF documents without an index or searchability. It doesn't do anybody any good. It's just an easy way to hand the ball over to someone and say, not my problem anymore. but let's get down to the basics. It would be great to be able to have someone walk through the maintenance room and look through their HoloLens and do all that kind of fun stuff. But how about let's just starting with an asset register that we can have links to the manuals and make it that much better. And the final thing for the incentive change is decoupling the data. You're not going to use one tool. You're not going to have one model. This is a compilation, a system of systems that we have to bring together. So let's decouple the data from those systems, and that way the folks can use that data, sorry, with the appropriate tool. So that's where we got to by the end of the conversation. It's another fruitful one. Look forward to the next in the conversation about digital twins.
Appreciate it, Kelly. I'll have to tell you this story next time about a mega project and floppy disks, but that's until next time.
Sounds like there needs to be a beer with that one.
Yeah. So moving on into reality capture and data silos, always excited to hear what Brianna and their team got cooking up in their roundtable. Brianna?
Awesome. It was really interesting listening to your update, Kelly. And there are quite a few similarities in what we discussed. And it looks like a couple of those bullet points aren't populated perfect. Thank you, Dan. Awesome. So what I want to talk about today is reality capture data silos. And there are quite a few consistencies here with what Kelly was saying around what is required at the end of the job may be different than what's happening during construction. So Alan was one of our subject matter experts who comes from JLL, and he's really focused on facility management and integrations. And what he brought up was, how does reality capture data transfer into and out of the world of construction and into facilities management? And how do we get all of the metadata that you're creating during reality capture and have all of it available so that you can ensure the information can transfer between each of the users and the platforms that they're going to be using during each phase of their life cycle of the project. And something that was brought up was CMMS, computerized maintenance management systems, and IMMS or IWMS, which is internal work order management systems. And these are tools that the owner side is going to be utilizing that require a different format, but similar information that construction is using. So the next thing that we brought up was Jen from Pepper Construction. She's the VP of Technical Services, so she's heavily working with project teams on what tools they're using. And in this project, they were using 360 videos for Sitewalk. They had robotics involved in media capture. They had drones, they had webcams, they had laser scans, and AI image recognition software for safety. So they basically had every different possible reality capture tool on that project. And what they ran into is that there was a lot of redundancy in capture, and some of the capture methods could have been used better in other platforms if they would have had each of those different capture types shared amongst the different tools that they were using. So something that she was working on is what is going to be the hub, or like the integration point that everyone is pushing and pulling from, and establishing that at the beginning allows for better operability between all of the different data that's being transferred. And then the last thing that we discussed was, how can we move reality capture data from build to operations? What does the owner need and how are they consuming it? So the takeaways that we summarized were, defining use case, tools, and output requirements at the beginning is critical. So we need to establish that minimum transferable data requirements at the beginning. Like Alan had talked about, if you don't have the metadata with each of the capture types, it's going to be really difficult to try and get it at the end of the day when you're done to try and transfer it somewhere else. And then, does that metadata exist? Is the information something that can transfer elsewhere? And then what are going to be the integration requirements? And then pick providers that work within each of those different tools and can share information consistently. And then the last takeaway, which was brought up consistently and ties back to what Kelly was saying about the digital twin, is that educating the owner and getting them involved early is critical. If they're educated and they know what tools exist, they can then help be a part of establishing those requirements. So beginning with the end in mind. Something that we had brought up in some of my days as a general contractor was, when does closeout start? It starts on day one. And if the contractor and the trade partners are thinking about formatting and creating data in a way that can be transferred to the owner and the facilities manager at the end, that's going to help everyone use this information in a better and more constructive manner throughout the life cycle of the project. So that's it for our takeaways. Lots of shared pains to be discussed further in the next round of reality capture. And thanks to Alan and Jennifer and the other people in the group that were sharing some of their shared pains around data silos.
Thanks, Brianna. And last but not least, technology stack, third-party connectors. This is probably the bane of my existence that causes me to need mindfulness because of my siloed data, because of all these open APIs, is third-party connectors.
Dan, you're getting it.
So Tammy, take it away. I know Satyam had to hop off, so without further ado, Tammy.
Yeah, and of course, it's my first time doing this, so I didn't provide any notes, but I've jotted down a few, and we had a really great conversation. We talked a lot about what is an iPaaS, what is an integrated platform do for me, what it can provide, what does it do versus what does it not do. We talked a lot about how a Rivet, a construction industry specific integration platform, is different from a Zapier, a Jitterbit, a MuleSoft. In the world of what's working, we had a lot of feedback on, when you get a true integrated solution, when you have someone who understands both systems, when you have a partnership in the middle, so somebody who understands maybe the ERP solution, somebody who understands the other application, and you have somebody in the middle who can kind of translate, you get to choose a best of breed that works for your business process. You get to eliminate manual entry. You get to give time back. In my world, that used to be you get to let a superintendent build and not have to worry about worrying about his expense report. You get to allow employees to stay in a solution that they're comfortable with. We talked a lot about construction data exchange, really organization, pulling apart the organization and integrations between two different organizations, and how that tech stack is very different from integrations within an organization. For an example, external organizations, the engineer versus the GC. Two different organizations need to integrate product information and bring that into one so that they're not wasting their time going back and forth. Everybody's on the same page as to whose responsibility is whose. What's not working? We heard a lot from customers that they get tired of hearing software applications say, sure, we've got open APIs, no problem. Here it is, go build it. An API in itself, and we talked a lot about this, an API in itself is the tool that solves the data flow. It allows for the automation. It allows for live automation if you want to go that far. What it doesn't allow for is the actual connect to the middle part, right? And the understanding of the solutions. And if I have Tammy Alexander, it's two names, Tammy Alexander, in one system, the other application wants it as name. There's got to be somebody in the middle who connects the dots between first name and last name equals name in this solution. There's a lot of people in the world who just say, yeah, we've got an API, let's just throw it out there. Let's provide the API. What does that look like? We did discuss early on in our conversation the import-export versus an actual API connector, and the power of the live data in our industry, the ability to have and forecast based on data that's flowing every 5 minutes, every 30 seconds, versus relying on a person to grab a file, manipulate that file, import that file, take that file from somebody else, email it to somebody else, change the file again, put it in this system. We talked a lot about that, and a lot about how that used to be what we termed as fine. That was fine. That was okay. Now it's not okay. Now we need our margins are so minimal. We're reliant on the absolute most up-to-date data that we can get. Data is powerful. The data silos, like Dan said, are a nightmare. But the ability to choose best of breed relies on an integration partner, an integration platform that really can connect all of the dots. Let's see, what did I miss here? Testing the data flows. So there was a lot about a product and understanding how data can be tested between two systems as it's integrated, and a lot about whose responsibility is that? Is there the responsibility of the product that you're buying, the software application, that solution, to say, here they are, they're handing you these APIs, but what if they don't work? What if the endpoints they've developed don't actually fit into the solution, the other solution that you're trying to move data to? Validation, security. It was a long conversation. We didn't even get to some pieces and parts of it. It was a great conversation. Really enjoyed having the customer approach, the software approach, as well as feedback from the whole group. So.
All right. Thanks, Tammy.
Awesome. So yeah, we're well over our time. Sorry for running a little bit long, but once again, thank you guys so much for making these valuable. You know, again, these are only valuable when we all put this time in together. So please do, again, those Plus Delta link in the link to join Construction Dorks after this in about 9 minutes are up there. But again, thank you guys so much. I guess raise your hand real quick if anyone wanted to go back into a room because it had another follow-up discussion. I gotta know, is Sasha here too, or did she have to leave? I think Sasha left. Okay. Well, Ezra, I'll follow up with you, and everyone else will follow up. But these were awesome, guys. Thank you so much. We'll share the recording next week. And until then, have a good one. Stay safe. Stay healthy.
Take care, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks a lot.
Thank
Good
you.
luck, y'all.
All right.
Good job.
Thanks. Bye.
Take care.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks.